see. I should have done that on my Cricut.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Janet Shaw and Michelle Rivera, and we are waiting for the Frank Callan's Boys and Girls Club to join us, and we're going to be continuing in one of the steps for our applique that we're working on. Our final project is going to end up as an abame applique. But what we're doing right now is we're incorporating in steps on how to create an applique, what materials you use to make an applique, and then working through the creative part of putting your project together. So one of the inspirations that we're using is endangered species, and the other inspiration we're using is our own favorite animals. So we're going to be showing you how we came about drawing our subjects, what materials we're using to create the fabric collage, and then what we're doing after that. So we're getting started, so everybody grab their materials. Hello? Yes. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to look for you guys. Okay, I don't see you on there. I'm going to send you the link again so you can get on there. Okay, hold on. Okay, I have to hang up to send it to you to your cell phone. Okay, hold on. Hang up and then I'll call you back after I send it to you, okay? Their teacher isn't there, so there's someone standing in front of them. Let's see here. Keypad,
I've gone by the Girls and Boys Club 1,000 times and thought, oh, I would just love to volunteer.
Okay, I'm on the Boys and Girls Clubs are coming in. Okay, so did you get the link? Yes, I did. So if anybody else is having any problems accessing the studio, you can call me. If you were an invited guest, you should have my phone number because I'm not going to give my phone number on the live stream. But
Yeah.
I know. No, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to do that.
I was just raging.
But if you have my number, call me. We're going to get started as they're coming in. So Gianna, you think that's really funny? All right.
Because I wouldn't even think of what I would have done.
I know. Smart thinking. I'll give you my name, my first and last name, but I can't give out my phone number. Okay. So Janet is doing a fox, and she started out with a sketch first. So Michelle, I know you're sketching yours right now.
Mm-hmm. I have it. It's a simple sketch of a penguin. Let's see. It's not black line.
Put it up there.
Mm-hmm. It's hard.
Very nice.
I didn't black line it, which I could do. I thought about it, but I didn't know if I wanted it to be. If I was going to try to put on my Cricut, I would black line it so that I would pick it up on the. But yeah. So I have my materials here, and I may still actually put my black.
Okay. And Janet, if you show yours, I'm gonna let the Boys and Girls Club in.
Okay.
Oh. Hello, can you guys see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So I see everyone's got their materials, and what we're doing right now is so you have two choices to start out with. You can either draw it out on a piece of paper and cut out the fabric and place it into what you drew, or because I gave you guys animal fabric, you can cut out the pieces of the fabric with the animals and do a collage that way. So everyone should have their burlap, or they should have a piece of paper. Okay? So you should get a piece of paper or the burlap. And you should have a few pieces of fabric, of different fabrics. And I'm going to start out, you guys weren't here when we all introduced ourselves. Janet Shaw, we're in her studio, and we're going to be using, she has a fiber studio. It's wonderful. She's got loom, she's got stamps, she's got a little bit of everything in here. So she's going to be our live studio host, and the reason we're doing this virtually is because we can't be there with you guys because they're not allowing for volunteers to come in. And Michelle Rivera, she is also a facilitator, and she's been working on the project with us also. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working along with you guys and showing you the steps. So if you have any questions, or when you get to a part where you have already done one step and you're ready to move on to the next, then you guys can come up to where the camera is and show it, and then we can go from there. So what we're going to do first is Michelle is going to show her penguin, Janet is going to show her fox, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of how to get the collage started. And then we're going to work on it a little bit and then go from there. And then I'm going to also add in which materials that we're going to be using to create the applique. All right. So Michelle, do you want to show them your penguin again?
Sure, I just blacklined it. So I just started by making a.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you. So it was in pencil before, it was hard to see. So I did in pencil, and then I just went over with a Sharpie or a black Crayola marker and went over the lines that I made, and I just tried to pay attention to shapes when I was drawing. So I looked at a picture of a penguin, and I just kind of focused on little bits of it at a time, like making the curve of the head and the beak, but using pencil first and then going back in with marker to kind of make it more bold.
Okay.
This is the emperor. It's endangered.
Right. I like that. Okay, so that's for anyone who is starting with paper. And Janet's going to show you how she just drew her fox.
Okay, Michelle probably drew her penguin, but I went out online and I got an image of a fox. And I went into my word processing and blew it up a little bit so it would be big enough. And then I printed it off. So that's the other thing that you can do.
Okay, so that's a really good suggestion, because if anybody is here from the last time we started, there was a template that you guys had. It was an elephant ear and then an elephant off the side of it. So if you don't want to draw, if that's not your thing, that's okay, because you can still collage. If you like the cutting aspect of just putting things together, then like I said, the fabric pieces have animals in there. So you can just cut around the actual animals that you have in the fabric. It's almost the same idea as if you were using a magazine, if you were doing a collage with the magazine, but you're just doing it with fabric. And if you're going to draw yours, the idea is that this was the template that we started out with. A lot of you guys had the elephant ear and then you had the second part where the elephant face was drawn on there. So I'm going to move this up so you guys can see it. And this is all collaged. All of that is just, you take your time and you put the fabric in between, you know, each area you want. Now, the second part of what you could do is if you have the burlap, all you're going to do is take your fabric, like I have here, and I've got, let me do this, this is a little small. I've got this moose fabric here because one of my animals is a moose. And you can cut out the animals in the fabric. So you've got this already. You didn't draw it. You just cut it out. And that might be a little bit easier if you're not into drawing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your tacky glue. So I'm going to do something really funny because, well, it's not funny. It's dramatic. But there is tacky glue and there's also this tacky glue spray. And you can use the tacky glue. I'm just using the spray. And put it onto the fabric. So that's just another way to use an adhesive. And why I'm showing you guys this is because when we use the different papers to adhere the applique onto, be it a t-shirt or be it a fabric, it's usually iron-on. It's not glue. You can glue the appliques using the tacky glue because you can actually glue fabrics together and it stays pretty well. You could even wash it that way. But the adhesive we're going to use is an iron-on paper. So it's just like regular paper, but you iron this on and it stays on. You can put it on t-shirts, you can put it on backpacks, you can put it on whatever you want to. So I'm going to let you guys work a little bit and I'm going to start working and we're going to check back in about 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm going to have Janet show you the next step from if you were drawing it, what you would need to do to add the fabric onto it if you were making your own fabric. And Michelle is cutting pieces. And I'm going to finish collaging on this burlap.
They're so quiet.
I know.
Are they there?
How many of you guys are there? About 4, 5, 6. All right. Can you see me? Does that live with StreamYard banner get in the way?
No, we still can see you.
Okay.
Right, just go to oh yeah, put them on fire. Can you explain one more time what they're supposed to be doing currently? A few of them are confused.
Okay. Yes.
Pay attention because
fire raise a hand. How many people are going to draw their draw an animal and piece the fabric into what they drew? How many people are drawing? Raise your hands. No one? Okay, so if no one is drawing, what you're going to do is you're going to get your burlap fabric. You're going to pick your fabric with the animals on it that you want. There's all kind I put in there, I think. You know, cats, everything. And then what you're going to do is you're going to cut and collage, just like as if you were cutting out of a magazine. How many people have done collage before? Okay, I see a hand. Okay, so do you mind explaining to everyone in there what a collage is?
Yeah,
Is
there a
everyone
collage
listening?
is
Can you hear her?
like what you did earlier, how you had the tissue paper and you were overlapping. You're taking a lot of things and putting it together in one picture. So, right,
Right.
you need to be cutting from your fabric so that you can make a collage.
Right.
I'm
So it's like as if you were cutting pieces out of a magazine, but only you're cutting it out of the fabric. So my collage is going to be a bunch of mooses.
Mooses.
Yes, it's a bunch of moose. No.
Okay,
And
they
why
said,
I
what is
did that is because I actually drew. I'm gonna show you guys this. I drew my moose. That's what I drew, and I started piecing it together. But for you guys, because you're not drawing, it's okay, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the pieces like you have here, like see this moose right here. Each of you have each individual pieces, and then you're going to collage them.
Can you explain the process of drawing? Someone wants to draw now.
Okay. So the process of drawing, Michelle.
yes.
I know you're I know you're cutting. Can you show them your penguin?
Sure.
Just kind of show how you drew your penguin.
So I actually got like a picture to look at. It's a little easier to look at a picture. This is actually the Galapagos penguin I'm looking at. So
I want to draw, you can draw. If you don't, you don't have to.
So I looked at the shapes of the animal. This is a different picture than I was using before. And I just try to start small and just kind of go in little chunks. Like when you're learning to draw something, you would start with the mouth, and then I went over the head. It's getting some glare on it here. And then I went down the body, and so I just started with little shapes. So my first sketch I did is in pencil, and this is one of my students right here on the side, drew a little foot for me. And I just drew a picture of pencil, because pencil you can erase. And then afterwards, sometimes I use this as a scan and I make an image out of it. So I like to put marker. And so then I resketched it and I put marker on. And now I'm starting to do the collage by putting pieces of different types of fabric on in here. Okay. So it's easier if you're looking at an animal that you're trying to copy. I mean, you can do it from your head if you can.
Right. And for mine, I did not look at I looked at a moose, but I wanted to draw it the way that I wanted it to look. So I kind of added my own elements into it. And I drew, now some people may say that looks like a horse. That doesn't really look like a moose, but I put the antlers on it. I think it looks like a moose too.
I think it's perfect. I love these little like shapes in here. I like these little spirally circles. I just love them.
Those are nice. Okay, so while you guys are doing that, I'm gonna have Janet show you the next step. We're not going to do this time because we're just collaging and getting the idea of what an appliqué is and why it has so many layers. Like some people are asking, well, why do you have to use paper and then why do you have to use another fabric? I understand the collaging part. I understand that you're putting things together and you're creating like some type of shape to it or abstract idea. But why so many layers? Like, why do you have to use so many pieces of paper? Or why do you have to do this? Well, because it's not, applique is not woven. So it is put together in layers. So you can use woven materials to make an applique, but the applique itself is not woven. We're going to be embroidering it. So Janet's going to show you how she took the image that she copied off of the internet, and then she took some materials that she had. She actually wove these materials herself because she's a weaver. So these are her own materials that she's woven, and talk to you a little bit about the object that she added in. Now we're adding in beads. You guys too are going to put beads on yours because when we meet again next month, we're going to be doing more beading, which is a little bit, you can either glue them or you can embroider them in or you can sew them in. But she wove this little special, her kind of like signature object, and I'm going to let her tell you what it is.
Okay. So I started out with my fox, my picture of my fox, and then I needed to find a way that I could cut this out of a piece of fabric. And it's regular paper and it's kind of stiff. So I made a pattern by using a piece of tracing paper over the top of it and tracing around my fox. And then once I had that traced around, then I could use my tracing paper to cut out my fabric. So I ended up with a fox, and this has got a couple different layers on this. And I did that by overlaying various parts of tracing paper in the parts that I wanted to. This is actually 3 different fabrics. And like Camille said, this is my fabric, my woven fabric, and it's pretty fragile. It pulls apart, it frays a lot. So I needed to do this in layers so that it would have a little bit of strength. And then I'm going to embroider around it. And it doesn't have a head yet because I'm in the process of adding that. This is my cartoon that I have made out of my pattern over a piece of fabric, and it's going to be the head to my fox, hopefully. And what Camille is talking about with my woven fabric, I wove in bones into this fabric. This fabric is actually a swatch of something that I was playing around with on my loom, and it has little bones in here. And these are little raccoon bones that I wove right into the fabric. And bones are something that's kind of important to me. It's been a design element that I've used since I was probably about your age. So a lot of the things that I create have something that relates to bones.
Okay. Okay, so how are you guys coming along? So something that I did, which again, it just depends. I had a chance to look at the fabric. I know you guys are just coming in and getting started, and you didn't know what the fabric was going to look like before. But I knew there were moose and rabbits on this fabric that I was working with, that if I was going to just cut moose and rabbits out, then I would be able to do that. And what I did with my beads is, like Janet said, her element that she's used for a long time has always been bones. But I like beads. And so what I did was I used my beads to create like this little, oh, let's see where it is. Oh, this little owl rabbit. I think it looks like a rabbit, kind of like the moose and a rabbit in the pictures that I showed you earlier. So the idea is it might not look like anything you could imagine, but once you start putting it together, it'll start to take form. So if you have any questions, or while you're working on it, you kind of want to come up and show to kind of get some ideas of what you're going to add in there, you guys can do that too. But I'm going to start working on mine. Janet's working on hers. Michelle's working on hers, and we will touch back in about 10 minutes.
See, it's working now. And you just want to basically, so make sure you're not cutting the whole thing off, because remember you want to cut one full, one out so that you can put it on. Hold it on, you left-handed? Yeah. Okay. Even if this one I'm working, try this fabric and do the same thing. You won't cut out a whole bunch of them. Raya, you're supposed to be cutting.
I was worried about this not being shaggy enough.
Let's try. With this is the dog. This is the dog. Now, how did you all?
Another thing we're doing is we're working a little bit backwards, because we're going to use the fabric collage, and then another thing we're doing is we're working a little bit So we're going to be using tracing paper after we've used the collage, and we're going to take components of how we made our collage and we're going to trace it. You can actually iron on this tracing paper, so it's a little bit different than your tracing paper you'd use if you were doing an art drawing.
Is it from the phone?
Yeah, so I've live streamed on Facebook.
Okay, I knew what I was doing to here.
The other side is yeah, how many people do you want me to put up?
Rael to the front. Your ride is here. Rael to the front.
Who else is in there? Who's outside?
Oh, Wendy?
Oh, there's Wendy.
Is that our Wendy?
Yeah.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
She said she'd come play.
Yes. So we have some more people coming into the studio who's working on a collage with us. Is anyone at the Boys and Girls Club? Do you have some of yours partly done? Can you come up to the camera and show us what you've done so far? Or are you guys still like in the middle of working on it? Oh, here we come. Here we have someone coming
Oh,
up.
great.
Let's see. Put it up a little closer.
Awesome.
Oh, that's nice. So see how very good. Okay, so you can see how the texture on the fabric definitely looks different than the texture on the paper. Let's see here. Oh, someone's drawing. What did you draw?
I'm still drawing the horse.
Oh, I see the horse.
Very nice.
Excellent.
Good job, guys.
I love it. Nice. I guess I should spray this with glue before it falls apart before our eyes. I have this. I'm going to take this over to the sink.
So Wendy, what are you working on?
I'm not. I'm late to the party.
Oh,
What's a minute?
You want to see what everybody's doing, huh?
Yes, I do.
Well, I cut into my hand-woven fabric, and of course it fell apart. So I'm stabilizing this with a little bit of glue, and now I'm stuck to it. So I think I'm going to be having dinner with my fox tonight.
So for anyone who's just checking in with us,
How not to use glue on
yeah,
your hands.
I know. Oh, so that's something funny. I know you guys have heard about the Gorilla Glue, spraying the hair with the Gorilla Glue. And please, this you want to be careful of. It is not Gorilla Glue, but it is tacky glue spray.
And it's sticky.
And it's sticky.
I just sprayed it all over me.
Yes. And it is like the tacky glue. But it's just another way to kind of gloss over, and you can even paint over the tacky glue spray. So you guys are going to be working a little bit with that the next time we meet in March.
So is this gonna stay tacky?
No, it'll dry.
I just need the edges to.
Stop from fraying. Yeah, that's what it's good for.
I'm gonna go up to.
Huh?
I say I go up.
Okay.
You're right.
I don't know. You what? Y'all can do that part next week. All that supplies put away.
Okay, so to show you guys a little bit, for those that are deconstructing the fabric and making a collage, this is what it looks like on the burlap. Like the example that we just saw earlier. She cut out pieces and she put them on the burlap. Now, the idea is that you're working from a fabric that already has like a pattern. This is a seamless pattern of different animals and different textures like flowers, snow, leaves. And when you're collaging, you have the opportunity to move around some of the different patterns and place them where you want to. So you're going to have a completely different look to the actual pattern that we're looking at. And that's why we're calling this a reproduction textile. Now, if you were replicating a piece, it would have to look exactly like what you're replicating. So reproductions give you the opportunity to look and admire the piece as it is and add in your own element to it. And that's what we're going to be doing with the Ballet appliqué, because we have a couple of different animals that don't necessarily look like the animals that we see. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting our own spin on what we think this looks like. And then we're going to be adding the textile technique that Janet had talked about earlier, which is embroidery. And you can embroider on fabric and paper. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit of what embroidery is. So what I've done is I've collaged all these pieces. All these pieces are right now. The embroidery part is this right here. It's where you take embroidery thread or floss, you use a needle, and you create little stitches. And usually it's done around the applique. It's done inside the applique too, kind of like I did. And there's different kind of stitches you can use and you can make depending on how you want your piece to look.
I'm doing a little bit of it right now, but I'm just doing it. I'm not for doing it for design. I'm doing it to kind of
Hold it together.
hold it together.
Do you want to show them that?
Yeah. So in my piece, because this fabric is really loosely woven, once I got my fox cut out, he started to fall apart. So what I'm doing is I'm doing kind of like an embroider stitch just around the edge, and it won't be the design element that I'll end up with, but hopefully it will hold this guy together.
So embroidery has two purposes. One, it's to hold the stitch together, the object that you're stitching on, or the piece that you're working on, and then it's also a decorative element. So I don't know if any of you guys watched the halftime show for the Super Bowl this weekend, but the jacket that The Weeknd was wearing was hand embroidered. So they said it took 250 hours for him to have, well, he didn't do it, but who designed his outfit, 250 hours to do kind of what Janet's doing, but only putting the sequence on. So again, embroidery is used for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different looks.
Justin, you know, all that picture paper at the item in that box? You know what to do. Baby, you're doing a lot of walking, this girl. Leave all your trash until you get done.
And if you guys have to leave, this is probably going to take us, we'll be working on this until we're going to meet back again on March 10th. So you can be working on it in your spare time between now and then. And then the week before March 10th, I'm going to drop off the embroidery floss, needles, and the tracing paper to you guys. And we're going to move on to the next step. But you guys are getting the idea. For all of you that weren't here when we did the assemblage or we did the other plant material appliqué, that's kind of what we did, but only we used the plant material and we used the fabric.
I've got a flaky fox. Well, I don't know. I just glued it to my hand the last time.
You tried. I know that.
I could make some, take some tacky glue and wet it a little bit of water, and then use a paintbrush, and then leave it sit. But it should sit overnight. It's okay. Do you know we had one of these foxes right down the middle of our road? That's why I chose this fox. I was sitting in my living room and I looked out the window in the front, and Mr. Fox was walking right down the road. Please. My goodness. Pretty cool. I didn't know we had fox.
I was hoping to see a moose when I went to the Upper Peninsula for the winter holidays.
Up there?
Yeah, they do, but I was told you don't want to get too close to them because they could really mess you up.
Yeah, they're really big. I've seen them in Canada. They're not close.
Yeah. Do I want to get up and close and personal like a moose? Maybe this is as close to a moose as I want to get.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Oops.
The fox is losing his tail.
So someone is doing a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Is she still there?
Yes.
Yes, I hear you. How's it coming?
Yeah. But you gotta say a lot of
Pretty
it.
good.
She said good.
Good.
Justin, your man needs to be up.
Do some work on his tail. He just had a tailectomy. Didn't mean to. We'll fix him.
Yeah, this is better than a dissection class.
So, do the kids go there after school? Is that what they do?
Yes. Yeah.
After school.
They're there from after school to about 5 o'clock. You guys start to leave around 5 o'clock, right?
Yes.
And next time that I'm going to have to show you, I don't know how many of you have done a fiber arts class with me before, but a couple of years ago, you guys made these wonderful peacock. It was like a velvet painting with peacock feathers. They spray painted over the peacock feathers and used oil pastels. And so I'm putting together the demonstration so you guys can actually see it, because we're also going to add painting into our applique. So you've drawn, you're going to embroider, you've added some layers, and then also you're going to paint. So you guys be thinking about that also.
I'm excited. I'm almost done with my penguin body. It takes a long time.
And just so you guys know, I started working on mine this weekend. Actually, before the weekend, like last Wednesday, when I right before I dropped the materials off to you. So don't rush yourself. Don't think this is something you have to have done by the time we finish this. That's kind of why we're live streaming it. And we have a bunch of people who are, just getting started. They're wanting to know a little bit about what we're doing, what materials we're using, what they need to get. So please don't rush through this. Take your time with it and make sure it looks the way that you want it to.
So Camille.
Yes.
So I was thinking about when I want to try to embroider. Is it easier to kind of poke some holes in the paper, like where you want it to go, instead of trying to actually sew?
Well, so that's kind of like, have you ever done string art before, where they put the holes in and you pull the string through the holes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You could do it that way, but the thing is if you do the embroidery like that, the hole gets too big. So when you pull the embroidery through, it leaves like a hole.
Oh.
So if I, and I'll show you the piece that I did, that, feeling it, actually when you're when you're embroidering it on the paper, to embroider it like you would do a piece of fabric, lessens the holes that you actually put in the paper, and it stretches out because you're putting a hole before you actually pull the embroidery floss through. So it makes it a little bit looser.
Okay. So I was thinking about working on that.
So can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of feel which way to go. And this is, I didn't do the back of it. Of course, it's supposed to be a little bit cleaner, but I did a couple of, like, I frayed this right here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kind of little different things that you can do.
I have to be right back.
You can kind of tell what you're doing from the front, from the back.
Okay. I'll be right back. I have to go deal with an animal. You good?
This question. You want me to put up anything? No, you good. You good. This one's out at 5 or they,
That actually, apparently that's what Ms. Thompson has to do.
So here is a little bit of what I'm doing with the piece.
Can I stand up and
As long as you got your feet. I said, yeah, as long as you got your feet.
Okay.
Oh, not at all.
Bailey, report to the front, prepare to go home. Bailey, report to the front, prepare to go home.
And you can do that, collage part, maybe. Cause y'all gonna be working on that for a couple of weeks.
Okay, so what I'm doing on the collage side is I'm just taking all the textures from the fabric that I took, and I just took a few of the animals that I wanted, which was the moose and the rabbit, and I'm going to be piecing them all together. Okay, so how many more people do we have left for the Boys and Girls Club?
yeah, I didn't hear you. All right, baby, see you later. Okay.
We've got a couple more.
Yeah, maybe this already.
No, we've got, she's still working on her horse. And then we've got another person working on their fabric collage. Is there anybody else in there that's working on something?
No, we're getting actually, it's about to be shutting down for us. But
yeah, it's almost 5 o'clock. I know.
Yeah, so Dream is still working on her horse.
Anyway,
She's still working on her horse, her collage.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, so she's still gluing
really
and
yeah, that's really nice.
So, and here she goes. She can show you.
Oh, that is Dream.
Yes, this is Dream.
So, Dream, did you do one? Did you do one last time too?
I don't think so.
Yes.
In the art room. In the art room.
You weren't here last. You didn't do one last time we did it.
In the art room when y'all make those little rows?
I don't remember that.
You remember that? She probably wasn't here. She probably wasn't here when they were in the
Okay.
art room with Miss Thompson. Yeah. Are you
Okay.
back?
Well, you're doing an excellent job. And I know that you guys have to get ready to go. So just make sure you put your projects up, and then we'll pick up and work on them on March 10th. And you guys can
On
be
March
working
10th?
on them in between now. So when you go into the art room with Miss Thompson, just make sure you work on your collage a little bit so it's done, so you'll be ready to move to the next step.
Okay, March the 10th would be the next step.
Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Okay, so you guys have about a month to kind of work on this and get it to look exactly the way you want to.
Let's say okay.
Okay.
It's still fumbling in.
Okay. All right. See you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank
Bye.
you. Not yet. Not yet.
You're doing a good job on it. So now, now we're moving on to the second part where Wendy is our guest in our studio, and she is from the Savannah Fiber Guild. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming projects that the Fiber Guild's working on in membership and meetings. So for everyone that, chimed in while we were with the Frank Callan's Boys and Girls Club, how our live streams kind of flow are that we start out with a community collaborator, and then we have guests in the studio. And we kind of continue to work on our projects because, like you noticed before, these are kind of ongoing and they're in steps. And the live stream is meant just to get you going, to give you the ideas that you need and the support that you need, that if you have any questions, that you can ask them, and then you can reflect back on the live stream if there's something that you wanted to see or a step that you missed that maybe you could catch up on. And then again, it's also to introduce our upcoming projects and some of the resources that we use to come up with these projects. So Wendy is going to talk about, she's the president, and a little bit about the Fiber Guild and how to get a membership if you're interested.
Hi, everybody. Who am I talking? Am I talking to more people than I can see?
So we're in the studio.
Right.
You're probably talking to a lot of people.
Okay.
We're on a live stream. So
Okay.
who you're seeing, it's a little different than the Zoom meetings. So
Right.
the Zoom meeting is just who's in the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
But there, we have an audience outside of the studio.
Okay, got it. Because I can only see a couple of folks. So my name is Wendy. I live in Bluffton. I am, as Camille said, I'm the president of the Fiber Guild of the Savannahs. We're a group that is interested in doing anything with textiles. We have knitters, weavers, spinners. That means people who take animal fiber and weave it and spin it into yarn. We have people who do felting, which is taking raw fiber and putting it together in a certain way to make felt. And there are different ways of doing that. And we have a studio with many, I say many, we have a number of large floor looms in the studio. And people who are members can come and weave in the studio and borrow the looms. We also have some looms that can be loaned out to members. So and right now we are having our meetings on Zoom because of the pandemic, but we are starting to have some in-person meetings for very small groups at Oatland Island Wildlife Center, which is where we have our meetings. We have a room at Oatland. If you don't know Oatland, it's a wildlife center that's owned by Chatham County Schools. And we have a nice collaborative relationship with Oatland where, in case you don't know, they have animals and gardens and all sorts of activities. And so, the animals that interest us at Oatland, in particular, there are 2 Shetland sheep, and there are 2 Angora goats, both of which all of which we clip in the spring, and then we send their wool, their fiber off to be processed, meaning it's washed and put into a form where we can spin it with a spinning wheel. And then we create items out of that fiber, which you can see if you can go into the gift shop or you come by sometime to Oatland when we're having a meetup. We have a wide variety of talent in the guild. So people do, I just mentioned a few things, but people really do all sorts of things related to fiber. And you can see Janet's studio, although what you can't see with Janet and Camille is Janet has several looms in her studio, so she's one of our weavers. But membership is open to anybody who's interested in any of these fiber pursuits. As I mentioned, knitting, crocheting, anything like that. And people can join by joining at our website, which is, I'm going to have to look it up while I'm sitting here. And you can learn more about the Fiber Guild by going to the website. But we have a really good time. Hang on, I'm trying to find our website. Okay, it's www.fiberguildsav.com. FIBERGUILDSAV.com. And you can learn a lot more about the guild and also about the studio and anything that is related to the guild at the website. We have an awful lot of fun. Our Zoom meetings are fun. It's not as great as having a live meeting, but you still get the feeling that you've been hanging out with your friends. And our meetings are the first Saturday of the month at 10 o'clock. Once we get back to live meetings, it'll probably be more like 10:15. And we meet in a space in Oatland. Our studio is so crammed full of equipment that we usually have a different space that we meet in for actual meetings. But we are also having fiber meetups. So if you're ever at Oatland on the first Tuesday of the month or the third Saturday of the month around 10 in the morning, we're usually there from 10 to 12, either outside or up in the studio. So feel free to come by and say hello. So Camille, have I forgotten anything important? Or Janet?
No, you have. And what I'll do is I'll create a resource sheet and I will have it so that people can actually connect to the Savannah Fiber Guild's link. And then also I'm a member of the Fiber Guild too, and I've had the opportunity to share a sheet, and it has been pretty interesting. And a lot of the guild members do the fibers because that's what I enjoy. I'm a Nuno felter, and a lot of the fibers you can Nuno felt and felt with. So if you're a weaver, if you're a spinner, you know, or if you're just interested to kind of find out what else it is that we do, please, you know, join us. And I believe as members, we can bring a guest to the meetings, can't we?
Oh, absolutely. And I should say that anybody, you don't have to be a member to attend meetings. There's a place at the website where you can sign up with your email to get the newsletters, and that also means that you will get emails with a Zoom link for the meeting. So you don't have to be a member to join. We kind of have a rule that you can come to one meeting before you join, but that's not really a hard and fast rule. We welcome anybody. And we've had kids join before who were interested in fibers. It's not all women. We always have a couple of male members at any given time. So, and if you're not sure what it's about and you just want to come to a meeting and sort of figure out how things go, what we do at the meetings is we have kind of a little business meeting first, which is a little bit boring, but that's usually over with pretty quickly. And then we have show and tell, which is a lot of fun because we have people showing what they're working on. So I'll show my knitting right now. There's a little mini show and tell. I'm working on knitting an Afghan.
Oh, that's what you're working on. So Wendy, that is my favorite part, is the show and tell. Can you please show that again?
Yeah. Okay. Let me back up a little bit.
Very nice.
It's a hand knit square, and it builds outward. So it's turned into a fun project, and I used natural dyes to color the yarn. And then at 11 o'clock ish at our meetings, we usually have a guest speaker. So we bring somebody in from outside to talk about what their art is. And we have a lot of professional artists. I mean, we have people who just dabble and like to knit or weave or spin, but we also have professional fiber artists in the guild. And often that's who we bring in as speakers. And Zoom's been great because it's allowed us to bring people in from other countries this year. So we've had someone from British Columbia in Canada, and coming up we have a speaker from Sweden, and we have another speaker from Glasgow in Scotland coming to visit. So that's the nice part about Zoom. That's allowed us to really expand who we have to come and speak. So it's very motivating. People find that it it energizes you about your artwork and what you're working on.
She did the.
So
I think she did the printing.
I wish there was a way for me to take questions.
I know. So
yeah,
that's the thing. That's the difference between a live stream and having it on Zoom, where it's a meeting.
Right.
With the live stream, what it does is it gives everyone opportunity to listen and then connect afterwards because they're not in the studio.
Right.
And it gives you kind of a platform to show the process of what we're doing or whatever the project is. And then so to give you an idea, we started this project, the Project S.M.A.R.T, the appliques, back in December of last year. And we've gotten over, I'd say over 1,500 people checking in, checking back from all over the country. We can kind of see the demographics. Mm-hmm. From Belgium, from France, and when we initially started making the mask, which the kids did the last activity, we had connected with this fiber group in France, called Fiber Art Fever, and they had put together a challenge to creatively put together a mask in any way you wanted to, whether it was sculpting. They had crocheted masks, they had embroidered masks. I Nuno felted a mask. So we get a lot of people that will access the live stream and then connect to a piece that we've done in the live stream. So it's a different process altogether than having it in a Zoom because it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And what we'll be able to do is take pieces from all the live streams when we're done in May, and then kind of put a more insightful production piece together, and so that you can actually see each completed project after it's done. And also, this was a way for us to help with the city of Savannah reaching out to a lot of the art and education programs that have been suffering because of COVID. And for example, the Boys and Girls Club, we're not allowed to volunteer in the facility because they can only have the people that have been tested, because they have the kids there for virtual learning throughout the day. So by the time the afternoon comes, they're not letting anybody into the building. They're kind of moving everybody out, but they still, need people to creatively give the kids activities. So what I do is I take the materials to them about a week before. I give them the instructions, and then we walk through it. So the kids that maybe missed it, the benefit of it is the kids that maybe missed the activity that day because they weren't there, they can catch up from the other kids. They can look at the live stream, and then they have a month. They have a month to get started, and then also bring in some of the projects that they've been working on. And like I said, this kind of gives you a real-time perspective of how long it takes to put together textile art, or to put together art even in general. Because Wendy, you've been on here for about an hour. Yeah, for about maybe about an hour, well, like 45 minutes. And how much would you say you knitted within that 45 minutes?
Not much. Maybe an inch or two. Maybe an inch or two, but I have really big stitches. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So for everyone to get a real-time perspective. Yeah. So Michelle, you've been working on this for about an hour and 15 minutes to do the collage part, and you've just finished collaging your penguin.
Right.
Let's see. Put it up closer.
Oh, that's very cool.
Oh, I love that.
Yay, thank you.
Beautiful.
So cutting out all those individual pieces and to get it to look the way that you want it to look. And you can tell, like with the kids, they're just getting started. So this project takes about an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the idea of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Janet, where are you with yours? Can you show some of the embroidery that you've been doing?
I started out trying to hold the fabric together, because the fabric that I chose, it was a great idea to use my hand woven fabric, but not the best fabric to try to do collage with, because it's sort of falling apart. So I'm ending up over whipping an edge here, and it's taking me a while. But I'm not an embroiderer, so maybe somebody that knew what they were doing, it might take them. They might get a little bit more of it done than I have.
So should we wait for it to dry?
It's great.
The tacky glue is really wet, right? The tacky glue is pretty wet. Should we wait for it to dry before we try to sew? What do you think?
Yeah, so with the embroidery, if you're going to outline it, like I'll give you an example. Because you're going, you're going outside of the line. You're not
Right.
actually putting it in the fabric. So you can start on the edge of it.
So as long as I'm not going
and
into
then as it dries, right.
But I just put my needle.
So this is a collage that I started working on using the beads and some leather fabric scraps, and then just cutting out triangles, because one of the things with collages is, do you cut the shape or do you cut the object? Like, how do you get the design so that it fits in the spaces that you need it to fit? So that's one of the things that we'll be working on with the kids too, as well as anyone else who's interested and kind of wants to know, how do you start this? Like, how do you cut the pieces? How do you pick the pieces? And then how do you start to layer them? And what we're doing now is a little bit of all three of those steps. And before we end the live stream, again, we'll walk you through each step of creating the object or the shape of what you're going to collage, and then collaging the fabric onto or into the shape, and then how we're going to use the embroidery floss inside and outside to kind of bind it together and to create an element that we're going to add on to our piece. And then as I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to just mention it again, we have a couple of type of papers we're going to work with. This is embroidery tracing paper, which is different than fine art tracing paper. This embroidery tracing paper, you'll be able to iron on. So when you transfer your design onto the paper, you'll be able to iron this onto a piece of fabric and then embroider on top of the fabric. So an example of that would be, imagine this paper to be fabric. This is mixed media paper. And what you would do is you would put your design on the tracing paper, and then you would transfer the design onto another piece of fabric, which we're pretending this to be the mixed media paper, and then you would embroider around it. So we're kind of doing this in steps. There's also, some people are familiar with just the individual adhesive paper, which you can draw on this. But the other side of it, the texture, which you can see through here, this is the rougher texture. This is kind of the softer texture right here, where you can also iron this kind of paper on there as well. So that's part of the layering process. And how that would work is, for example, if you had this piece of fabric, and this is what I was collaging on today with the kids, just to show them to use the burlap and add other pieces into it. What you would do is you would iron this onto this piece of paper. You would iron it on, and you'd iron it on from this side. And then you pull it off, and then you can embroider around it, and then it sticks on to another piece of fabric. So that's why we're going through really the layering process. There's quite a bit of layering in appliqué.
So Camille,
Yes.
with the embroidery tracing paper, Is that what it was? What's in your right hand? I want to get the words right. That tracing paper. So you can
The
draw on
embroidery
it.
tracing.
You draw on it, correct? And then you can iron it on your fabric. Have I got that right?
Well, with this, you actually, yeah, you transfer something that you've drawn on. This is an extra step. This is a transferring
Okay.
process.
Right.
Where
Right.
you draw something and then you transfer it onto the paper. So that's if you sketch something in fine detail and you want details in it.
Right.
It works a lot like fine art transfer paper when you're going to paint
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
This paper is where you construct whatever it is that you want to make on the fabric already.
Okay.
And then you actually put it onto the paper.
Okay.
And then you iron it. So that's why we're doing a couple of different steps. Some people they didn't draw, they just used the fabric collage.
Sorry.
He's like, no, I don't want to go.
Is that the dog sneezing?
Yes.
Yeah. That's G.
That's G.
Yeah, G owns the studio.
Yeah, well, he was banished this afternoon, and he's not very happy about it.
Not at all. Not at all.
Mine are outside.
So this is a prepped piece of appliqué with the appliqué paper on it. Now this is just fabric. This is not anything drawn. What was done was block printing was done on this piece of fabric, and then it was prepped so that the appliqué paper, which is this paper that I showed you, was placed on the back. And then what you do is there's like a little film that goes with it. So when you pull it off, it has like a little gloss on this side. So you know the difference between the fabric that goes up and the fabric that goes down. Then you actually iron it.
Oh, cool.
So then it irons on to another piece of fabric. Same concept as the collage that we're doing, but only we're using glue. And you could actually iron it on to the fabric. So there's quite a few different ways to build your appliqué. So for example, with this one, this is one that I completed. I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to use this as my template because this is a rhino I drew from a picture I took. As close as a rhino as I could get.
Beautiful.
So I'm like that, Janet.
Do you like it?
Let me see.
It's a little messy.
But I can see the leg here.
See the leg? And then this little comes down.
So I'm going to show this. I'm just going to show the detail that Janet's working on. Now, this is the back side, right?
Yep.
No, this is the front side. Okay, so this is the back side of what the appliqué looks like because this was what she used.
Was one paper, right?
This was what the paper. Okay, so this was the tracing paper she used to create.
It started here.
Yeah. She started with
a picture. And then I took tracing paper around the pieces of it that I wanted to add to it.
She put the tracing paper on top
outlined it,
outlined it,
then cut it out of the fabric.
then cut the tracing paper and she made it in 2 pieces.
And then I'm fitting it back together again.
So then she puts it back together again. And then this is the fabric. She actually hand wove this piece so that she could have the body. And this is going to be the front. So you can see why you would need to trace it and have it, so that when you put your pieces together and you want to add more detail to it, you use this. So normally we would be collaging these pieces. That's what the concept the kids are doing.
And I think if my fabric did not have a really heavy texture to it, that I could have used that paper that you're talking about being able to draw and then iron. You know, you draw it and then iron it. But I don't think it would work on here. It might work on this side. I don't think it would work on this side, because I don't think that it would that you would have I don't think it would take to this fabric. But actually,
yeah, it would. This even takes on to burlap.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I could have. And actually, I kind of like that side, even though it's the back side.
Well, I thought because it was flat, and I saw the. I was thinking. I looked at it right. I looked at it backwards, and that's the other thing too. That's why cutting your pieces and then reconstructing them. If you have like this idea of what's front and back and reversing different shapes and sizes, that it's helpful. Like, and then too, what's really unique is that when she does the embroidery for the face, she has the fox face. And this is what she's going to put on
Over top.
Yeah. On the top, so she can add her details in. So it, again, like I said, it's the same. Collaging is a skill, I believe, that goes on with appliqué. We have another guest. Hold on, let's see who this is. There we go. Hey, Carol. So, Carol Greenberg is a guest in our studio tonight also, because we have another element aside from what we've been working on that we're adding into the collages. And we are adding in poetry with collages, using our collages as a backdrop. So, Carol, how did you like doing that activity? Can't hear you. Uh-oh, she's frozen. She's frozen. You're frozen, Carol. There you go. You're moving now. Can't hear you. Hold on, I'm gonna call you. Hold on. Oh,
can you hear me?
There you go.
No.
Oh, that's Michelle.
Sorry, my cat got my string.
Oh, hold on.
Hello.
Another phone call. When technology fails. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm unmuted on my end.
Okay, so we can hear you now, but you're just a little bit delayed when you're talking.
I won't stay on this format for very long, especially if it's annoying because it's not syncing. But I am unmuted on my end. What it says is that host has to unmute me. So if I get off my phone, are you going to hear me?
Yeah.
You are?
Because I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you now. Okay.
All right. So y'all can hear me? Wave if
Yes.
you can hear me. All right. Well, hello. I'm going to watch on one of the other formats, especially since my technology is really stinky. But I want to tell you that I really like this project. I am not an artist. I like to write some poetry, however. And what I do find is that I have always collected things that I find on walks or in the street, in nature, and I've glued them together to make, I guess, what Camille would call an assemblage. But for me, they're just little collages to go along with my my stories. So I am amazed by all the wonderful stuff that you're doing. But I will. Should I show them the one that I sent to you,
Yes.
Camille? All right. So bear with me just a moment. So I had been working on another one to go along with the elephant ear project that Camille had done, but I got as far as the poem and I didn't make the art yet. But this is one. Let's see if you all can see that. So this is the type of thing that I've been doing. There we go.
Very
All right,
nice.
this one's called Nature's Ballet. So it's just found objects that mostly are glued. You all are sewing and doing all kinds of other stuff. And although I have done that before with some sewing or whatever, most of these they really are layered on. So I started out with just a pen and ink drawing and watercolor, and then I started adding leaves and things that I found. And the poem is, the cows are standing in the lake, taking direction from the shore. The geese are flapping overhead. Sheep are bleating, they want more. Delicate cowbirds settle on their backs while they wade through to and fro, a performance choreographed by God himself. Why, it's Cow Lake, don't you know? So that's my contribution to tonight's program.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
collage just is another way of telling the story. And I don't think you need to be an artist to be able to do this. I don't.
Well, what I found is that, especially with what they consider primitive art, that art sometimes is your perception of the things around you. And some of us have a little less skill at it than others. So we rely on people like Camille to make it all work. So that's that.
Okay, I'm back. So with that being said, the idea that collages, and as Carol mentioned, I use the word assemblage because one of the things I do when I collage is I like to add an object. So that's like my thing. Like I feel like because I don't want to get too personal with what I'm creating, because it is in the creative process, I have an object that I focus on that kind of directs me. That's kind of like what Janet does. And like what Carol uses the collage to kind of illustrate what she's talking about. And so there's a little bit of history about collages and poetry and how it's used as a backdrop to the poem itself. We know that a lot of poems are illustrated. Um, you'll find a lot of artwork that they find that matches the poem, but not a lot of times do you have the poem made at the same time you're making the artwork. It's not something that goes really hand in hand. Just like collaging as art, a lot of people don't see that as an art skill, they see it as a crafting skill. But in order to build an applique or a larger project, you need to have these steps that help to create the final project. And layering is used on a multitude of platforms and forms of art, be it sculpting, be it drawing. There's a layering process in everything. In writing, you don't just make one statement when you're writing a poem. I don't know, I've never seen a one sentence poem, but they say they have them, you know. But for deeper meaning, yeah, that's kind of like a rhyme to me, I would think. So the idea that you have something to help facilitate your words other than, you know, what someone else is saying about it, I think is really important. Just
Well,
like when you're
you said that you haven't heard of a one sentence poem. My husband has a theory that a lot of my poetry is not poetry because it doesn't rhyme. And so I actually I did this to a one sentence poem that he wrote. But I didn't finish it. So his poem was, "Warthog, you aren't a dog or a frog, just a grunt." And this is I got as far as doing the frog part because I like doing frogs, but I never got as far as doing the warthog or the dog part of this poem. So this is
awesome.
So that's an answer to, you know, can you really have poetry that's only one line? My husband says yes, just as long as it rhymes.
That's an invention, right? That's a grammatical invention, like the acronym. That is wonderful. So, like I said, what we're doing is for the first hour, we meet with our community collaborator, which is the Frank Callens Boys and Girls Club for this series. And then we're putting together the final project. We're building in steps to complete the final project. But in the process, we're working on our own art. And then we also have guests into the studio to talk about different projects that are in the community of Savannah, and as well as personal projects that we're working on as far as friends and people that know each other or just meeting on the live stream. And I like to have at least 2 or 3 different things that you can work on because, like Carol said, not everybody is an artist. Not everybody's a weaver. Not everybody's a sewer. Not everybody is a writer. So the creative process is used to just hone in on what it is that you like. And so we can just about take anything and break it down and apply it to whatever you like to do. And that's the fun thing about it. It's not meant to be stressful. We're not here to complete a project at the end of at the end of each live stream. We're working. Each live stream is spaced about a month apart from each other, so you have time to put time into whatever it is you're working on. You don't have to feel like, oh, I have to do this right now. And like I was saying with Wendy is working on weaving, and we were trying to put in a time perception of really how long does this take. Now Michelle started with her penguin, at the beginning of the session at 4 o'clock. And it took her from 4 to 5:15 to completely collage her penguin. Wendy started weaving at about 5:45. And then she took a break and kind of talked about the Fiber Guild because she's the Fiber Guild president. Janet, she started on this project before, but she's putting together her font so that it stays and it doesn't fray at the end because she's using a weaving material. Carol and I have been working on the poetry component, I'd say for the last week and a half, 2 weeks almost, to kind of put the story that goes along with how we look at what we're doing, whether it's creative, whether it's artistic, whether it's craft, or whether it's just for the companionship of doing something with our friends. So everyone gets a real-time perspective of how long it really takes to put something together. I think with all these do-it-yourself videos and quick tutorials, people think you can do things in like 30 minutes. And that's how long it takes to do like mostly everything. But obviously that is not the case. So, Wendy, do you want to show where you are with your weaving?
Well, I'm actually knitting.
You're not weaving, you're knitting.
No, I'm knitting.
I said
yeah,
weaving,
it's
knitting.
okay. So, and it's hard to, I'm sorry, my light is so bad. But I started about here. I'm working on pointing as good as Camille does. So here's my knitting needle, and I started about here, but I'm only doing this little strip. So I've done about, when did I join? Maybe an hour and 20 minutes ago. And I've gotten about 5 inches done. It's about, 6 inches by 3 inches. So it takes a long time. This is going to take me months.
I have seen so many wonderful things that your Fiber Guild has done. And I know that you also have you've had a couple of shows over at the JEA that I've attended. Absolutely wonderful. And I think what I've always been so interested in about the Fiber Guild is that you really do cover a whole set of disciplines, and that all of your fiber artists are so busy doing different things, and yet somehow they're all under your tree, as I know about the tree at Oatland. They're all under your big umbrella, and I think that that's amazing. What's your intent for the piece that you're weaving, that you're crocheting?
It's going to be an afghan. So
I could put it on there and then
I'm working around the edges to make it bigger and bigger. So this is I started in the middle, and it's going to get bigger and bigger until
I like the way that it comes out in each direction. Because usually you see things that are strung and go right to left or left right, but this actually goes out in. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a certain technique to join and to make corner and turn the corner. So it's a little bit like a square snail.
Very nice.
You can't really see. Next time my lighting will be better.
No, that's good. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's just you work below.
And Michelle.
You know.
Yeah.
So where are you?
Hi,
so
Michelle
is doing. She's working on the also the next step we're doing with the embroidery for the Ballet appliqué, and so she's embroidered around her penguin. Put that up closer. That you did such a good job on that.
Wow,
Thank
you're
you.
so fast. I've been doing this forever.
She's
done.
Wait, where am I at? I'm just going around the edge, and then I have some white thread. I thought I would go in here to kind of give that inside of the, a little standout here. and go around the mouth. There's an eye up there. But yeah.
But Michelle,
So
it's
you're
mounted on paper.
Yes, mine's on paper.
It's paper.
Well,
So
yeah.
how do you not?
Yes.
So how do you not perforate? I mean, tear the paper while you're working on the embroidery.
That's
really
interesting.
So this is mixed media paper, right? So we did this before you came on, Carol. So this is
I'm
mixed
sorry.
media paper. And you can see where the embroidery is done, and on the back, because the paper is almost like a cardstock, the stitches hold in.
The thing is, you can't
Yes.
get too close, or else it will pull through. Even, the stitches can't be that close.
Right. Right. And the dilemma that we were talking about earlier is, well, why not put the holes in it first and then run the string through? But do you see that if you would have put the holes in first, it would have stretched out the holes when you put the embroidery string through?
Yeah, I see. I mean, I just thought I could kind of make some guide holes, just to kind of get an idea. But I think it definitely is more helpful to do it as you go along, because I did some more stitches in the feet. That I just had to do it to kind of make up for the lack of cloth there. So, yeah, I mean, don't put the guide holes in for like another learning curve. But yeah, I've had some that were too close together that kind of pulled through. So I think telling the kids that if they're going to be doing this, not get their stitches too close together.
And those are fabrics that you had, or you just envisioned it once you decided to do a penguin?
I envisioned it. I had one that I had from before, and then I went to the craft store and I got a couple more that I like, because this one kind of looks like feathers. And then this other one just had some pretty swirly patterns, because on the chest of the penguin it has like these white speckles. So I kind of wanted to know. So I picked out something that I liked for the design.
Okay, and what I'm doing is I am cutting out what you would need to do if you have completed all the steps, if you have your collage ready and you want to transfer it onto the iron-on paper. You've decided that you don't want to draw it. You just want to take the shape that you've made and put it on the iron-on transfer paper. So I'm just cutting out an example so that you have an idea. So when you cut the iron-on transfer paper, this is not the transfer paper you use to when you're drawing it. This is the transfer paper you use when you have your project already put together, collage. Okay, so you're going.
Is it like heat transfer paper, like you would, Camille? Is it heat transfer paper like you would use to transfer an image for a T-shirt?
Yes, but
when you do like an image transfer to put through a printer.
Okay, so this is not for the image. This is for the actual object, but it's the same concept. So like you could use vinyl. If you're putting something through the printer, it usually just cuts it out and then it puts the adhesive on it and you put a cloth over it and you iron it on. Well, if you're building yours by hand, this is the actual paper that if it's being printed on, if it's being drawn on, or if you're placing your object on it that you would use. So this is like, this is just the basic of how to construct it. So you have your collage. And again, another example, I'm going to use Janet's, because this is what she would do, not of course in the shape of a rhino, but in the shape of a fox. She would take her fox and she would put it on top of the paper and cut it out. So once you do that, you place it on the iron-on paper, and then you heat it up on the back. It sticks on, and then you pull a piece of it off. And as I showed earlier, another example, this is already pressed. Now this is a fabric that has been printed on. And what you do is you take the paper, which is very much like this paper. It's iron-on paper. You place it over the entire surface. You cut it, and then what happens is you pull it off, and you can see the film. This is what's transferred onto the fabric, is the film. And then you take an iron and you put it on another piece of fabric. And it irons onto that fabric. It could be burlap, it could be anything. So it's the same concept of collaging. You can collage individual fabric onto another piece of fabric. You can use glue. You can use the same paper, put it on the back of what you just collaged. Same process takes place. And then what you'll do is, once it's adhesed on there, you just pull it off and it irons on. So that's why we're taking it slow, step by step, because a lot of people are kind of like, hey, I just get the stuff that you iron on. You know, that's the easiest thing to do. But when you're putting a piece together where you're adding in different elements of embroidery, you're adding in beads, you're adding in different techniques that you're using, you're layering, and that's what appliqué is. You told me about a appliqué technique that your grandmother used.
Yeah, where you stitch around a pattern, like an animal, or these moose are really small. You'd use something obviously bigger, but you would stitch around it, and she took really tiny little stitches, around an animal onto a piece of gauze or muslin on the back. And then she cut a little hole in the muslin and stuffed that area. So you stitch around the outside of the area. On the show, she could do it with her penguin. Stitch around the body of that penguin, stitch it onto a piece of muslin, and then on the back of that muslin, cut a little hole, tiny little hole, stuff it full of fluff, and then stitch it back up again, and you end up with a 3D.
I actually did something like that once, but I didn't understand that it was art. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it.
Kind of like Janet.
Yeah.
Kind of like what I think of as trapunto. Do you know?
That's the name of it. Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Trapunto. Trapunto.
There you go.
Let's see.
Okay. I don't know. There's a lot of glare, so I don't know if you can. Let me see if I can. All right. So oh goodness.
Is that a flame?
It's a flame. Let me see if I can am I totally off screen?
No.
My
No.
computer just went dead. Okay. So it's supposed to be a mix of biblical stories and it's the story of Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. It's the story of the burning bush, but what's burning is a Hebrew letter Aleph, which is the same first letter in the word for fire, and also the same first letter in the word for woman. So the idea is that this is it is a patriarchal telling of a story, but at the center of all the stories, if you study them, is woman. So, and then you'll notice
awesome.
that the oh, thank you, that the Aleph, the symbol for the woman in this picture, is hidden or somewhat hidden, or at least it's variable, because the fabric that I'm using to cover up now that I know that I created an applique,
See,
is
and
a
piece of
shiny
art.
fabric, and although this is difficult because there's so much glare here, that you can actually see through the shimmery fabric that's the fire to see a little bit more of it if you look closely. But I was just playing, and most of it's glued. Some of it is stitched.
So Carol, the
Yeah.
technique that we were talking about was called trapento.
Spell it for me.
Trapento. Wendy, do you know how to spell it?
TRAPUNTO.
I love it. It has a great sound to it. What does it really mean?
I don't know.
We should do a study.
There's something that I found out about the appliques, the Ballet appliques that we're doing, that one of the things that they also included in the applique were different periods of war. And so when the Germans went over to Africa, when the French went over to Africa, the embroideries kind of changed to represent the cultures that were visiting there. And I believe the trapento technique, the 3D technique of doing the embroidery, they do have at a museum. So this kind of connects all the different types of techniques across the globe that people use. For example, the mola. That's also embroidered, and the molas are almost look 3D.
I actually have an example of that. I didn't do it, but I have a friend who made one for me.
Right back.
Yeah, I know, because Wendy did a presentation. Well, she didn't do a presentation for one of the show and tell. She brought one back from Peru.
Oh my God.
A couple years ago.
And
Yeah,
they are amazing.
She has some really neat ones. So the idea is that you start to, and like you said, Carol, you not knowing what you're just kind of going along with. Okay, so I'm gonna put some thread here. I'm gonna throw.
It's the way I've always done things. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah, you're not even aware that you're actually using textile techniques to put this piece together, which is why I call it
kind of exciting.
Right? So if you looked, aside from the representation of the objects that you use, and we had talked a little bit about that earlier, because Janet always uses bones in her pieces when she weaves, and it was something she's done since she was a kid. And I talked about the element of using the beads, that sometimes we focus on the objects. We're not looking at how we got them into the piece or what we're doing. I mean, we know there's something we have to do to get it there, but there's so many different techniques that you can use. You have it.
I can't find it, but I'll have it for next time.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, Wendy, I really want to see them. There was an article that I think I shared it with the Guild, that popped up about making these in Peru, about the women that are traditionally making it's a bodice, basically. It's a woven bodice, which is done on a backstrap loom, and they
Uh-huh.
are just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think they're symbolic to the families, aren't they? Or they have meanings behind the weavings that are in them.
Right.
Um, if I am thinking that you're talking about what you're doing, yeah. So, I mean, there's so many things, interesting cultures and how they've adapted fiber arts to their own communities.
So I actually have a question for all of you, because you all are artists. So when you try a technique and it reminds you of something else, do you find that culture to culture that people really do the same things, or the same techniques?
Exactly.
But they just call it different things and have arrived basically at the same end product, but often with a different result in terms of the way it represents their own personal culture? Yeah.
Carol, it's one of the reasons I do what I do. I had
Okay.
a really strong interest at one point in my life in anthropology and archaeology. And what I found is that there is something about weaving and spinning and working with needles and putting our bones and our beads and our things, that our poetry, our words, our stories, it transcends culture, and it also transcends time. The whole process of weaving has not really changed. The tools have changed, but the process of weaving hasn't changed since somebody figured out that they needed something to wear because it was snowing. So I mean, and the spinning goes back to when they were gathering animal hair off of twigs and putting it together in their hands to be able to make a thread. Is really no different than the spinning wheels that Wendy and I use. So the tools have changed somewhat, and the technology has changed, but the pieces that go behind it haven't. And I kind of think the thought process that puts your words together are the same that somebody carved, something in a rock someplace or on a piece of papyrus or something. I don't think we've changed that much at all.
I think when peace
That's
is
my
finally
theory.
established in the world, it'll be the artists and the artisans that do it. Because I know for years I was a dancer and I did a lot of folk dancing. And I had a teacher when I was very young who used to teach all over the city of New York. And she would teach everybody their own ethnic or racial dancing, whatever it was, that was specific to their country. And then she would once a year have everybody show up at the Waldorf Astoria. She rented the ballroom. And people from all over the city, all walks of life, would come together and do the same dances. And although you would highlight your particular country or ethnic background or whatever, all of the other dances we knew in common. And you had to really know the dance, because after you got to the first few people, you were swinging somebody you didn't know, or you were moving into a line of people you didn't know, until the end of the evening, we were a big smash of people. But what was really neat was the fact that what we discovered, even at a young age, is that the steps, that the music might have been different, and the artistic finale might have been different, but the dance steps were all the same. So that we really were all the same. And this was in the 60s. So it was a time when, people really didn't go outside their neighborhoods very much and didn't have a whole lot of exposure to people that weren't just like they were. So I think that artists do the same thing, because it seems to me like, as you said, you're really using things that are, maybe the techniques are new or different, but it seems like the art itself that you're creating is timeless. Am I getting it?
Yep.
Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so. Very much
Okay.
so. So we have made it to 6 o'clock, and we went over a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
But I believe that we have, got a firm foundation of the applique process, and really that it's different than weaving, it's different than felting, it's different than drawing. It's using fine art skills and knowing how to layer and pick the right materials. So that's the main thing that we want everyone to take away from this live stream. That if you're just catching the end of it, the tail end of it, or you were able to see the beginning of it, and a cat walks across the street, but I'll pop the tail end. Yes. So you have an idea of how long it takes, what you need, how to connect to some people that maybe have an idea of the same techniques that you like to use, but maybe you don't even know the name of it, or you only learned it to be this name and you find out that there's another name for it. So I want to thank all our studio guests, and one quick last check-in to see where we are, because I know when we meet again next month, we're going to be a little bit more elaborate with more details. So if you want to show where you are in your project before we head out of the live stream, that would be great.
I had a foot amputation. So I'm making a prosthetic.
All right. We're over here doing dissection and
yeah, I had a footectomy done here, so.
Well, I cut out my my template for my actually it's camouflaged. My endangered species was white rhino. Michelle's doing the penguin. So mine is camouflage. I was told at first they thought it was Paul McCartney. Then no, it's not a walrus. It is a rhinoceros. Thank you.
Well, if it's all right to use your template, I think I'm working on a poem about an elephant, and I'm going to use your elephant ears. But I'm not exactly sure I remember what to do with your template.
Awesome.
Nice.
So we'll talk at some point.
Carol, the elephant ears.
Yes.
So we got the elephant ears out of Carol's garden. We planted some elephant ears, and elephant ears from Janet Shaw's too. So that's where the template, the actual template I made was a drawing of the elephant ears that you guys donated to the garden.
Yeah, there'll be more next year. And I've
Yeah.
also got some indigo going too. So we'll have some indigo plants for later on.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that the next live stream. So Michelle, where are you?
I am making my way, like you can see on the back.
Oh, look at that.
So I'm
You're
making,
so neat.
thank
Oh,
you.
she took some time with that.
I like the
Your
back.
stitching is
Great.
Thank you.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
No
yeah.
one ever wants to look at the back of my sewing. No one. It's not
So
never at
I know.
I still have a little to go,
Don't go there.
but I want to use white inside of here and go around inside of it. So I'm letting it dry anyway. I'm going to continue going around the outside. That's my penguin.
Very nice.
I have this
And when
I
little,
just had a
you said you
curiosity.
did about 5 inches into yours.
Are you going to, after you do the penguin, are you going to create an applique from it, or you're going to use it, add a background, what you're doing?
So this is actually the Galapagos penguin, because I was looking at the emperor and the Galapagos, because I've been to the Galapagos Islands and I swam with those guys. So they actually have this really neat, like purpley pink.
Did you say you ran with the penguin?
I swam with them. I swam with them. They're like,
Sound like
they
running
run
with
with them.
wolves.
Swimming. So I'm just a little
I
cheeky.
swam with them. I was thinking about running with them. I was going to say, oh my God, that would be hysterical.
Yeah, they swim a lot. So I was thinking about doing the background, which is so neat about them is that they're not in ice and snow, right? So they swim around. They swim on the cold stream of water that comes along the coast, so they do get their cold water, but they are actually out in like tropical areas, which is really neat. So I thought about putting the penguin in a colorful like background, blues and greens and a shore.
And would you do that with fabric and with needlepoint, or you would paint it, or charcoal?
I like to do a little painting. I think I might put in, like last time I used a little crayon and painting and other different mediums. So I may do a little bit of painting. I might do some more stitching in there. I have some buttons that I haven't even thought about using yet. So I don't know.
I love the idea of buttons.
I do. I know. I was like, I got
I
them.
go with the penguin. Don't you? Yeah. That's really good. Well, you're all very, very talented. I'm a little jealous.
Thank you.
I'm almost up to my corner.
Let's see.
So
Very
that-
nice.
Awesome.
Very good work.
Very
So,
nice,
I'm back to a square. So now I have to turn another corner.
My crocheting is taking a stall. It's like a single stitch. I'm teaching myself how to crochet. So it's a single stitch Afghan that's really ambitious. So
Yeah.
I go to it every once in a while.
Okay. All right. So thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to our audience that sat in with the live stream and anyone who's going to be watching it afterwards. And we will meet back again on March 10th. And I will be posting information, different steps, a little bit about the resources and materials that we're using. And if you have any questions, you can contact me directly if you have my phone number, or you can reach me at mstarartscreative@gmail.com. That's mstarartscreative@gmail.com. And then the link for the YouTube is been up for the duration of the live stream, so you can always connect with us there as well. So thank you guys again, and
Bye, everybody.
everyone did
See
a
you
great
next
Thank
job.
you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you next month.
Thank you.
Camille, that was awesome.